Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Telos Initiative. I'm Angelo Cole.
I'm Chris V. Hill.
And I'm Matt Mays.
Today we're going to be talking about abundance and scarcity. So, Matt, you originally were the one to bring up this topic. It piqued your interest for some reason. Why don't you start us off?
Well, it's something that I think we're all deep down are looking for in our lives, and it's gotten so muddled in a lot of ways, our idea of abundance. Like when we say someone is looking for abundance, or I want to bring more abundance into my life, what do we all think of?
Wealth, right?
Right, which is a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But abundance is also in our way of living. Also, it can be a joyful way that we approach life. We can have abundance in many different things. We can have an abundance of joy. We can have an abundance of friends, in our friend circle. A lot of different things. I think another word that I come back to is flourish, right?
Flourish, yeah.
Yeah, flourishing. When we have like a flourishing existence where we feel that sense of flourish within ourselves. And that's really where I want to go to in this discussion too, is that flourish originating inward and expressing itself outwardly.
Okay. How would you specifically define abundance, and how would you differentiate it from something like having too much?
I would say that abundance is life-giving.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm so glad that you bring that up. Like there can be too much of something, and there's also a lot of benefit in when you have to go without too, which is, we'll get to a lot of that in this conversation as well, is, what to do when perhaps you don't feel a lot of external abundance in your life, but you can also have that internal abundance in your situation. You can have, a lot of people have, that internal, positive, life-giving mentality and, that sense of joy within themselves. And then you can carry that around you with, everywhere you go. So here's one example. You can just do this in everyday situations. Like many times I'd go to the grocery store and I would see someone like just, looking at the vegetables and be like, excuse me, these are actually my vegetables. I mean, you can look at them. And I tell you, 9 times out of 10, people just turn and be like, they'll be delighted, and a lot of them will just kind of play along because it's like, wow, someone invited me into this fun game.
Yeah, what a peculiar event.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, wow, that was outstanding and cool, and it's it creates this bond of joy and kinship that you can have with people that just originated from within you. You're just you're having fun. Basically, you're going around and you're having a good time. And I walk away from the situations like just feeling very, very uplifted, feeling very, very joyful in the ways that I go about my day.
Mm-hmm. So in that moment, you had an abundance of humor.
Yes.
And you were sharing that with someone else.
Yes, exactly.
And you can have a variety of non-physical abundance, like an abundance of virtue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure. So I love that you say that. Like, you can tie in that abundance with, like, many different facets, many different things. And when you can point to that in someone else, it's like, say they have that potential within them. Mm-hmm. You have this, you have a sense of humor and you're just going about your day. And then someone, like, points a light to that. And, it's inviting.
Yeah.
It's seductive in a way, positively seductive in a way.
Yes.
What do you think about abundance being this idea that it's enough, you have enough to share with others?
Yeah. Well, like in the, verse in the Bible, like my cup floweth over, right? That you have that within you, and you have so much that it naturally comes out of it. It just naturally comes out of your being,
Sure.
right? And so this also gets into the mentality of, of what, if we're talking about wealth, right? There's a mentality there of that person embodies ideas of abundance. We could talk about someone who's like, I'm talking about people who have this positive, abundant mindset versus somebody who's, we have the people who are like greedy and filthy rich, and we're talking about like too much and all that kind of stuff. I actually feel that a lot of them have a sense of lack that they are trying to fill, and it's like, trying to fill a sieve that nothing ever sustains it, right?
Yeah, I would almost say greed is the desire to have more than you need, while abundance would be like, you might have more than you need, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. Having an abundance of something could be, you could be saving it for later. If you have an abundance of food, you might say, well, this is in preparation for times of scarcity.
Yeah, definitely. And it matters so much what you do with that too. Like my 11-year-old son, he's been watching a lot of, I'm sure you've heard of Mr. Beast, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Very
definitely.
extremely popular YouTuber. He does all kind of different things, has these insanely popular videos, and very wealthy guy, right?
Right.
But he also gives to a lot of things. He'll like build houses in these impoverished places and like all these different things, and like he's very, very generous in a lot of different ways, right? And so looking at that, and that's a good financial lesson for my son too. And I told him, like, look at what he does with his wealth. Look at how he shares it. Look at how he spreads it around, right? So you can look at that, point to that, and be like, oh, that's, it's so powerful having like a good example.
He has abundance and an abundance of generosity.
Yes.
I feel like there is a connection between abundance and charity or generosity. You need to be able to have more than you need in order to give to others. And so there's a necessary component of compassion there. If we all had exactly what we need and we're all systematically doled out a certain amount, would we ever be able to express compassion and give?
I don't know why you're looking at me like I have the answer.
Oh,
but-
well, I mean, I thought you
think
had an
so.
abundance of knowledge.
I thought we all thought we did. Isn't that why we're doing?
Instead, you just have a bun.
He does. Look at this guy.
Gorgeous.
Look
Yeah.
at obviously abundance and abundantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes care of, and that's another good example. I mean, use it as an example too. Another facet of abundance is caretaking. Like taking care of yourself. Or it's so funny that, like, before the episode, I see cleaning. We've actually been doing some cleaning around our house too, where if you can't take care of the things that you have, then how can you possibly expect to take care of more, right?
Right.
So I've been coming back to this, the gestures of your hand, like an open hand like this. Be neither like this, with your fingers spread apart, nor with a clenched fist and clasping on, but like this. This is both giving and receiving, right? You're neither grasping too tightly, nor are you too loose that you let things slide through your fingers, but it's that middle ground, like that.
The middle way.
The middle way, right? So,
Absolutely.
when you take care of the things around you, it's going into responsibility. It's that integrity, right? There's a connection between what you say that you want, what you truly care for, and your actions matching that. Actually doing it, Like if you get a new thing, well, it's coming back to, concept that we spoke about, I believe, on our last episode about the thou-ness around us, right? So again, caretaking for what's around you. And regardless of if you actually believe in pantheism or whatever, try and act as if that were true, right? Act as if things around you
Right.
are thou, and you care for them, and you have a stewardship with them. So that also increases your capacity for responsibility. So when things come your way, then you know what to do with them. You know, you have the capacity to caretake.
Perhaps treat life with a sense of fullness, right? Everything you do, all of your actions should be full of your energy, full of life, full of your effort. Even down to the level of attention. What you give your attention to is what you care about. And even if you don't think about it that much, you're making a decision every time you switch where your eyes are pointing. Every time you choose to look at one thing over another, for whatever reason, you're giving care to that thing. And so the more you make that salient to yourself, the more you're aware of your choice and what you care about, the more full your life will be, the more present you will be. And let's look at the opposing side of that. If you don't take care in what you're giving your attention to and what you're giving your effort to and your energy to, you're going to be on autopilot. You're going to be mindless. And in the sense of abundance, you're not fully present in that moment. You're not fully there taking care of your reality to its fullest capacity.
That's right. Very, very well put. Beautifully put.
Well, all this kind of reminds me of that beatitude, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Or is it they shall inherit the earth? I can't remember.
I cannot remember either. Does anyone have a Bible on them? Well, it's something good, right? So blessed are the poor in spirit.
It might be blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. I think you're right.
That one's, yes.
But not just like being poor, right? Being poor in spirit, having an abundance. You can have an abundance. I think I remember Jordan Peterson saying something like, it's okay to make money. It's not easy to make money. So if you can make money, like, yeah, please. It's yours. The world is your oyster. Have that abundance, but have the spirit of poverty with you too, to be generous with what you have. And I like the idea of abundance and fullness as well.
Well, I think people get caught up in this notion that they need to give up possession in order to be morally right. They need to get rid of their belongings. And there are a few verses in the Bible and other theological practices where they call for you to give away your material possessions. But I don't think it's a black and white issue. I don't think it's as simple as, if you just give up what you own, that makes you a good person. There's got to be some sense of reciprocity there. It matters what you're giving up your material possessions for. Like, there's got to be some deeper reason beneath that. If you're just giving it up just to show that you're a good person, there's not really much there. You're just forcing yourself to be poor for no good reason. But if you're giving it to a good cause, let's say something you really believe in, and it truly makes a difference through your charity, I think there's a higher moral sentiment there.
Yeah, and if we're thinking about it from the position of the person who is being asked to give up their material possessions, that also speaks to that they actually have things to give up too. Like I've heard more and more often, like people who have gotten to this point, and it's like, all these things didn't matter, whatever. But I've never heard of someone as, how to say this, aspiring not to have them for its own sake, right? Usually they get to that place and then they say, oh, I got to the top of the hill, and then, I found that it was meaningless, and then they give those things up. But it's like, at least you should at least have the perspective. I think allow yourself to have the perspective to be at the place where you can understand that, or you can where you can have the things to freely, you can choose what perspective you have. You actually get to the point where you have actually attained what you want to attain, and then say, I went there, I got to that place, and this is my perspective. Whereas, like, a person who's experienced that, who has gotten to that place of wealth, like, they have the choice of whether or not they want to have the things, right? The alternative, you don't have the choice.
There's a saying, a hearse is never followed by a U-Haul. Meaning, when you die, you can't take anything with you. Yeah. So what are you going to do with all the stuff you accumulate?
Yeah.
You got to...
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. That's pretty good plan, too.
That's pretty good.
But my best estimation on what you should do when you accumulate a lot of stuff is, well, the first thing that comes to mind is give it to your kids. Right? Pass it on. And maybe there's a slightly more selfish element there where it's like, well, they're my kids, of course that's the best thing that I could pass it on to. Well, but it's also it's tricky because as a parent you're responsible for your children's well-being, so it's not entirely selfish there. But.
I've been thinking about this more often too, and I think it could be precipitated, like, my wife actually she runs this program that is around family businesses, and she's like around a lot of that kind of world, right? It's really it's strange to me, this idea now that I've thought more about it, how, like, you grow up, you get to a certain age, and it's like, oh, you gotta get out of the house, you gotta go get a job, you gotta go do this other thing, right? Whereas if you have a family business and you say, the first person, like, started this enterprise, and then you have this ongoing multi-generational legacy thing, right? So why is it such a tradition that, we're kind of expected to go and just do this completely other thing? Right. You start at ground zero, try and build up from the first generation, right? Rather than have a multi-generational thing. Like, of course, if you do that, then you have a higher chance of building a legacy thing, like a family legacy thing. That's what you have, these businesses, these family businesses that have been around for like 100 or so years, is because that's what they did.
Right.
That was the strategy.
I kind of miss that era.
Yeah.
When it was like an apprenticeship sort of deal, and even if it wasn't your immediate family, there would just be an intimate sharing of your abundance of skill.
Yeah,
right?
And it's like, no, I'm not going to, just expect you to go out and just do it on your own. Like, no, like, come with the family and come help build this thing.
And there's a pride in your craft, whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
Let's say you're like a shoemaker, and you just know how to make any kind of shoe. You're fast at it, you're good at it, you have something unique to your brand. Everybody knows your style of shoe that you make.
Oh yeah.
You want to pass that on to the next. And if you don't have children of your own, who are you going to pass it on to? Well, you've got to bring someone in. And I feel like that whole apprentice idea is sort of lost with time. We live in an era where it's kind of like, go into the system and learn. We're going to throw a bunch of skills at you, and you kind of just narrow it down from there. And once you get your sheet of paper, go and figure it out. Good luck. And there's no intimacy there. There's no you don't really have a close mentor necessarily. I mean, it's not completely gone. There are definitely mentors and apprenticeships and things still going on, but I just think in our culture, people think the career idea has become like so dead. It's like a graveyard.
Yeah, and maybe it goes.
There's
hand in
no
hand with-
personal touch to it.
Yeah, maybe it goes hand in hand with this very kind of American idea too of the individualism and the pull yourself up. And there's a lot of merit to that too, like the personal grit and the personal sovereignty of your individual experience and your individual power. But that doesn't mean that you individually have to go it alone, right? You can bring that into whatever venture it is that you're doing and have that sense of vitality and power and that optimism of abundance in what you're doing.
Right. I would tie it back to like the Industrial Revolution. I think once we started treating people like assembly lines and people started turning into these machines because the process to make things became more complex. You needed several stages, right? So this guy's doing this piece and this guy's doing this piece, and you're kind of going down the line to make this complicated thing that you would never be able to make as efficiently on your own. Once that sort of mindset started happening, how can you have your own personal touch to something that's bigger than you? And so it's almost like the company's brand becomes the personal touch. But
I think whatever happens with factories and branding and the economy, that's one thing. But I would like to return to the fact that everything that we just said is like a perfect metaphor for immaterial abundance. Because that's what we the whole apprenticeship thing, and passing something on to our legacy. That's what we do with our faiths, right? And our religions that we ascribe to. It's like these ancient ideas. Excuse me. It's like these ancient ideas of philosophy and theology and God and virtue all channeled into like a single faith. And for Christians, right, a single symbol or a single man that become like spiritually and immaterially enters into our reality. And then those graces and those virtues and those good things that we have multiplies as we share them with others.
Yes.
And sometimes that includes an apprenticeship like a spiritual director, or just like showing up to the ball game and opening up your holy books and reading it and engaging with it. Right?
Makes me think of the we keep quoting the Bible here, but it makes me think of the fishes and the loaves story of Christ.
Right.
When they didn't have enough, and somehow it was more than enough for everyone to share, even though
it was an abundance.
Yeah, there was an abundance there.
Yes. Wow. I think it really speaks to like the idea of happiness too. Like how we now understand more of happiness and how we can have more happiness in our lives, and say we have a group of people. Actually, there's an excellent analogy for this where you have this classroom and every single person in that classroom has a balloon. And they write their name on the balloon, and then they put all the balloons into the hallway and they scatter them all around the place, right? And everyone's trying to find their balloon, and it takes them forever. But then the game changes, and say someone else finds your balloon and they give it to you, right? All of a sudden, everyone, it comes back. The thing of the spoons, right? Kind of similar, right? Is all of a sudden everyone has their own balloon with their name on it.
Oh,
right? So it's the idea of the collective joy and the collective good and the collective happiness. It's like that kind of happiness is like the intelligence that you can not only can you experience happiness through your own gratification, but also through another person's gratification.
There's a shared abundance.
A shared abundance. And through that, you actually multiply your sources of happiness through all the people who you can light up happiness within them, right? And then you just put yourself in the very best position to have multiple sources of abundance around you in your social circle. I mean, what better position could you possibly be in than that?
Yeah. So the psychologist Piaget studies the development of children, and he was looking into kids playing games. And what he noticed is that when you have a group of kids and there's like maybe one kid who's really good at a game, if he just tries to dominate the other kids and just completely win every single game, maybe he wins in the short term, but in the long run, the other kids will stop wanting to play with him. He becomes like less likely to play the future game. So there's like a bigger game. It's like a game within a game. And what he noticed is if they're willing to give up a little or share even a little more than half of what they have, the other kids pick up on that and they're like, oh, I want to play with that kid. I want to play with the kid who lets me win a little more, even if he wins sometimes. And that's like the best position to be in, is in the position where you're giving a lot to where other people notice your generosity and abundance.
Definitely. And when I think a real leadership quality in terms of competition is when you're actually making the people that you're playing with better too, even if, and I would even say especially if you're playing in a game in opposition to them, right? Like here's another example is I love chess and my family loves playing chess, right? And whenever,
Right,
we're gonna I'll throw down some chess.
Target.
I love it. So whenever we go on vacation, especially my wife and I, we have a small chessboard, a small portable chessboard that we bring with us, right? And we'll make time to play these games. Say what we could be having like a brunch, right? And we'll play a chess game in the space of that brunch.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Bunch of nerds.
And so, yeah. And, you know, sometimes she'll get me, sometimes I'll get her. And I've noticed there's also like a psychological advantage to who challenges who, too.
Oh, really?
You know? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like she challenges me. I'm like, okay, I know she's gonna bring it. I got a game up. And then if I do the same, I'm like, I'm coming, you know. But, you know, we'll have a little chess tournaments, and like the last one that we played, we just got back from vacation celebrating my sister and brother-in-law's vow renewal. Been married for 10 years.
Nice.
And yeah, so we got to have a little vacation. We played chess in this last game. Oh my God. It was so close. I thought I was fried like a number of times, right? But I was just able to outmaneuver in some different ways, and then there were just a few, key missteps that were made that she made that I was able to like reverse the, momentum and that sort of thing. And I finally got it. Finally got the checkmate. The first thing I said was like, you know what? I just have to say, like, you really gave me a run for my money just now. Like acknowledging like she's a force to be reckoned with in chess, man. Like, so she's really good, and then we're going and we're analyzing the different moves, what went down on the board, analyzing, looking at those, what could have been done.
Did you notate them in algebraic notation?
I'm not that much of a
okay.
Wow.
Oh, never mind.
No, but I have a chess journal. I should probably use that more. But I could have just been like, oh yeah, dude. But what do I get out of that? So I want my victories to be defined by how well I did, not by the mistakes that she made. I want her to actually be a competent person to play against, right? And therefore, my playing against her will also make me better, and then we leapfrog and she becomes better, and then I become better, and she becomes better. We both become better, right? Which, if you actually look at the word competition, it ties in with the word competence. It's about improvement. It's not about one person beating another person. That's the other people in a game are factors to you. Right. You can only play your game. You can only play your own game, right? Think about that. You can't control what the other person's going to do. You can respond. They can respond to what you're doing,
right?
But you're only ever playing from first-person perspective, right?
And that's true on team things as well, right? Other members of your team, they're not you, you're not them. You have to cohesively play together in competition.
That's right.
And how are you going to get better if the other person isn't seeing something that you're not seeing, right? If you need a challenge in order for yourself to move forward.
That's right.
Well, it sounds like you and Helena are very gracious chess players. And I'm not.
You're the kid who nobody wants to play with. Because he won't let anybody win.
Too many people bullied me when I was a child, so they're going down. Alright?
No reciprocity.
I like that ferocity, though. I like and that's one thing. Like, a fierce
no, but if
chess
you win,
player
I give it to you.
Yeah, the bigger the ego, the harder the fall.
I will tell you one thing I've noticed. We'll get back to abundance here in a second. Right?
Oh yeah. I was talking about abundance.
Yeah, right. But I have noticed that, like, if I'm on the defense, like I usually play as the dark pieces, right?
Sure.
If the light pieces are trying too quickly to get to the back and to go on the offense, that actually ends up working against you a lot of the time. Because then if I build up my defenses the right way, if I actually overcome that attack, then you can actually end up losing key pieces in that attack, and then I can reverse the momentum, right? Because the dark pieces are about counter. They're not as much about the initial moves. They're more about respond. I know I'm like giving my chest stuff, but they're more about intelligently responding. It's actually I found it's a good challenge playing as the dark pieces because it makes you think. It really makes you think more.
You're one step behind. And if one thing I've noticed about chess, as well as most strategic games and jiu-jitsu as well, is that no matter what position you're in, there's like a weak point. So, let's keep it at chess, right? If you've got like a really solid line of pawns, but you haven't really moved any of your bigger pieces out, maybe you have a good defense, but you aren't going to be able to gain any momentum from way back here, while maybe it's hard to break through your line of defense. Whereas if you are playing aggressively, maybe you're going to be able to take advantage of a certain spot, but the more you move wildly, the more you leave yourself open for an attack.
Oh, yeah.
So depends on who you're playing and how they play and how aggressively. I love strategy games as well. So. I mean, but abundance.
Well, back to the topic of abundance.
Yes.
When I was excuse me. When I was studying some of our ancient history, like right at the cusp of developing our own civilizations and going into like history. So I guess just prehistory. Like for a moment, as we had like houses and temples and like a little bit of agriculture, fishing culture, and like developing languages and culture and all this other stuff. For a moment, we had world peace.
Interesting.
And the cause of that was that we had an abundance of resources. So we had enough food, enough shelter, and we were like, hey, do you guys have enough food and shelter? Here's some food and shelter for you guys. Have at it. And it was great. And then we probably I would say that we're still there in a weird way. We still have like an abundance of like money and food and enough entertainment to go around.
Yeah. It's just that it's all going to a small percentage.
Yeah, to a small percentage of people. But I think we could still have that. You know, if we just read up on our history a little bit, right? Know that we have an abundance and figure out how to get that abundance to more people.
I think we've got a ways
Good
to go.
luck.
Well, I think it's a communication issue because I think even if two people are willing to go that route, they both have different ideas on how to get there. There's going to be a bumping of heads, and there's just right now we live in such a antagonistic political climate.
I
this
think
two-party system.
Exactly. I think communication's actually a symptom of the real issue, which is that there's a scarcity of spiritual power in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go deeper into that.
Okay. There was a short period in my life in recent history where I had an abundance of spiritual power, and I was sharing it with the people around me, right, my family, and it was weird because these psychological and emotional issues that I had been dealing with for my entire life were suddenly resolved by this grace that I was given. And I know that if I can attain it, like this, you know, I don't want to be too self-deprecating here, but like, you know, this person who had his moment of degeneracy, right, in his life and deconstructed his faith, if I can go back and attain that and share it with people, I think anybody can do that. It's not going to be easy, but
right.
I think if we bring more of that spiritual power and energy and grace into the world.
So I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean by spiritual power. When you say you had an abundance, what exactly?
I specifically mean the Christian idea of grace.
Okay.
I should probably define that later. Let's put grace down, because I'm not sure I have a good working definition for grace. But I know I had it. And I know when I had it, suddenly all of the material things of the earth just didn't feel like they were worthy of my attention and my focus anymore. The only thing that was worthy of my attention was God. And the more I was able to tap into that, it was like the only metaphor I could think of is like God was like this ball of light here, and I was tapping into it. And it was flowing in a confluent relationship with me and me with it and him.
And you felt like this
and that
was
grace was flowing out into the world.
And you feel like now that state of mind was a positive thing, or do you feel like that was an illusion?
I feel like it was a positive and real thing.
Okay. Which is interesting because we were talking earlier about the notion of care and attention to other things in your reality and the fullness that you can have of giving attention to even the minute things in life. That's almost like a polar opposite idea. But I mean, when you say you gave your full attention to God, I guess that's just a very abstract thing to think about. I'm kind of like, what did you mean by God in that sense? Do you mean like the source of being? You were just fully attentive to?
So I guess, right, as a Christian, I was tapped into the Spirit of Christ.
Okay.
Right? So the Spirit, the immaterial thing that drives a human body and mind, and Christ, the salvation of Jesus, right? The Christ, it means Messiah and Savior. I was tapped into the spirit of salvation, the spirit of Christ. And it was an immaterial thing that was spilling out into physical reality. So I would argue that we have an abundance of like sensual things that we can enjoy, right? Like food, entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a scarcity of temperance.
Temperance.
There's like a scarcity of virtue that we need to amend. And when we amend that scarcity of virtue, we'll amend our abundance problem as well.
So what I'm hearing here...
That was powerful.
For sure.
Wow.
So what I'm hearing here is there's like a level of like physical objects and material things, right? You can have abundance of food, you can have an abundance of wealth or stuff or whatever, and then there's like another level where, and you're talking about the level of virtue, which maybe there's actually multiple levels here, but I would say the level of virtue is, it has to do something with, it's even our capacity to relate to those physical things in a sense. Like if you're talking about temperance, that's your temperance would be like how do I put this? Temperance would be something like how much of that stuff that you're willing to take in, or if you're like addicted to that stuff, you're kind of like taking too much in. Trying to think of the right
I've got
phrasing to put it. Yeah,
like, I think it comes back to this, like you can freely pick it up or put it down when you need to.
Right.
So you're not
and let's
you're not
not
attached to it, but you're not just letting things slide through your fingers.
Because you can be a
care.
slave to an object, right? Or a need, right? You can be a glutton. You can be lustful.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Well, I
You
was
can
going
be
to say,
greedy.
let's not complicate it too much. Let's just say it's like chocolate cake, right? You don't want to have like too much. You don't want to grasp too much chocolate cake for yourself. That's not. You're addicted to the chocolate cake. Then you don't want to completely deprive yourself of it. Not necessarily, unless there was a Christian thing called fasting, and I think probably in other religions as well.
It's funny. We just watched.
It's
this
okay to
movie,
enjoy
Chocolat,
but you can
last
enjoy
night.
it.
I don't know
Right,
if you guys have seen it, by the way. It's a really good one to watch in terms of chocolate and abundance and scarcity. And anyway, but continue.
So the temperance here would be your ability to not take too much, but not deprive yourself unnecessarily.
Yeah, I think that would be.
That's
a good definition of
Yeah.
temperance.
Right. There's also prudence, right?
Yes.
And your ability to judge situations.
One of the 4 cardinal virtues I think are
Justice, temperance, prudence, and is it courage?
yes.
Oh yeah. Good with
Didn't
my
even
Greek.
Didn't even have to stop. He was just like, it's this, and this.
Oh, Andrew.
You guys fluff me up too much. Got an abundance of compliments here.
No, what can we say?
I can name all 7 dwarves too.
That's impressive. But no. That's another element too. Is the balance between, say, the people who are like overly flattering, and also the people who may be overly critical too, and to take both with a grain of salt. It's like there could be some things that they're genuinely pointing to. Like you could have some genuinely amazing attributes about you, and they're just genuinely enthusiastic about you, and genuinely what's a much better word? Admiring. Genuinely admiring of you. And then there are the people who could be overly critical, and they could be pointing out the spots where perhaps you could use some improvement.
Yeah.
They could be both doing you a favor, really. Because
There's
the
also
people who are critical could be pointing out areas where you could improve. And then you could say, no what? Thank you for that. Awesome. Then you take that, and then, you don't have to take the negative emotions or negativity. You kind of go, okay, cool. But then you go back to the center, like what's the truth within both of those statements,
There's also an aspect of envy there. These people could be being two-faced. Like, if you've ever seen Mean Girls, they're like, oh, I love that top, and then that top is the ugliest top I've ever seen. Right? There's like a two-faced, backhanded compliment. They're almost taking that game that I talked about earlier with the kids, and another level of it is, I'm going to make you think that I'm playing with you, and then behind your back I'll betray you.
So humans are complicated.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Man.
As you get levels,
No.
man.
Let me write that down.
Oh my God.
I was like, are you really going to write that?
Let me make a note of that.
But I mean,
Humans
the element
equal
of
complicated.
the element of envy there is they see that you have something that they wish they had, and you are like a reflection of their iniquities. What do you call it? They're inadequacies.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
So they're like, oh, like I want to say something, but there's not a genuine spirit of admiration underneath.
So there's two parts in that I want to talk about too. Is there's the two qualities. Like there's the positive mentality of abundance, right? And then there's this charge to go and do things that makes that abundance possible, right? So it's like you can't, if you have this person who just, you have like a really good figure, you go to the gym, this person like takes care of themselves, and you're lifting, you're doing all these good things, and your nutrition, you got that on point. And then like, oh, look at this gym rat, look at this person, whatever. It's like, and if you're envious, it's like, don't feel bad about the work that you didn't do, that person did to go into to refine their form and do, like, if you don't want to go to the gym, don't go to the gym, but don't put on this front, this negativity, and this like, this false,
trying to drag someone else down to your level.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because they
your lazy ass level.
Yeah, right. It's like because that person had the positive growth mindset and the oomph to go and do the thing to get the abundance that they wanted to get.
Right.
Right.
So if you have a scarcity of that, right? Stop in the moment of where you are and bring an abundance of virtue to yourself.
Yeah.
And then decide, go to the gym or eat a salad, maybe do both.
Yeah.
Or if you're already there, you're getting fit, you're in a positive spin, you've got an abundance of that virtue, share with others.
Yes.
Bring that mindset to people that you care about. Share with someone that and not to lord over them like you think that you're better than them or anything, but like, hey, this is something that I find joy in. This is something that makes me happy, and I want to share that with you. Well, I want you to feel the same way that I do.
And hopefully there's a good spirit of that in the spirit of missionary work, right? Like it says it's either Acts or it's Romans, but the Bible says the apostles and the disciples of Jesus, they gave up everything that they had to go preach the word of God. And that's the idea. Like they had something real. They had something good that gave them an abundance of virtue and joy. They were like, and I think even Peter says to a paralytic outside the temple, he says, I don't have much, but what I have I will give you. Stand and be healed in the name of Jesus. And he does, and he is healed in the name of Jesus.
And just like the fishes and loaves, even if he doesn't have much, it's enough.
He multiplies it to the point where he's
spiritually. I do think that parable is a spiritual metaphor. It's not about physically multiplying food. It's about you can do that too with your spiritual wealth.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go to how to bring that in, like
How to materialize it.
Yeah, like say you have. I love going back to the potential of a thing, the thought, the non-formness of the thing, visualizing it first, right? So say you have an idea in your mind, whether it's, an abundance of virtue, an abundance of friends, an abundance of faith, an abundance of wealth, all those things. It starts as a conceptualization first, right?
Yes.
And then you focus on that. And where we focus, like we imagine the water flowing towards it. Imagine like irrigation ditches that your thoughts as water are flowing towards that thing, right? So you can direct your thoughts in a certain direction, right? And the more that you point your thoughts towards that, the more now I love this. I don't know if you guys checked out the The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. He did this amazing radio address where he talks all about this, and one of the key points that he makes in there that wise people have said over and over and over again from all different cultures, like what you think about all day long, you then become. Right? So you shape your behaviors, you shape your life by your thoughts, right? And the energy you put into your thoughts. So you think about that all the time. You think about yourself as a strong person. You think about yourself as abundantly in faith, and you focus on that. You pour your energy and your focus into that. Then that magnifies and that materializes, and the irrigation ditches of your thoughts and the water flowing towards them then shapes your mind, that then goes into your external reality. Right?
Yeah.
So it has really no choice but to show up through you, because you are that, because you are being that, because you've just spent so much time thinking about it that's
your thoughts become words, and words become actions, and actions become habits, and habits become
it impacts the world around you, right? So it's through that impact that you make that change possible, that you make that thing gravitate into your life. So that's really what it is. I mean, if you were to make a practice of setting aside time to think about these things and to pour energy, to pour enthusiasm and that oomph into those thoughts,
or care, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Put some care and some will into those thoughts.
Yeah, the doing of it, and that's really it, is the bringing them from the thoughts into the body, and your body as the medium that then brings them into your external reality.
That's great.
All right. Well, honestly, I think that was a pretty good talk on abundance.
I think so.
I think it might be a good stopping place to kind of wrap it up. And thank you all for joining us. We had a great time talking about abundance and scarcity with you. And if you've made it this far, thank you for sticking around. We hope that you'll join us for the next one. Have a good one.